Hi, it's Tom from BlackToad Studio, and I'm up at Imperium Gaming today having a small game, but not that small though. We are 3,750 points here in front of you. This is my Red Scorpion force, which will be facing Ian's Nightlords. So just to go into this list a little bit more detail, we have 2 battalions. They're not in any particular order in front of you, but I'll go through what we have in the HQ slots first. So we have a Gravas captain here. We also have a Primaris captain. We have a Librarian. We have a Lieutenant, and also over here we have Severin Loth sitting back here with his Honour Guard, and also we have Karen Cullub the Risen in his Dreadnought form at the back there. Troop choice wise, we have 2 tactical squads here armed exactly the same. So we've basically got the Sergeant's Apothecary, yes, but they're just going to be having a chainsword, a bolt pistol and a myrtle gun on each, and they'll be riding in 2 dedicated rhinos. Down the front here we have 3 scout squads. We've got 2 5-mans here. We've got one with all the shotguns, one with the bolters and a heavy bolter, and then we have a 10-man sniper squad here. And then the final troop choice is this 10-man intercessor squad over here, the sergeant upgraded with a power sword. Then we go into some elite choices here. We have a Cataphracti Terminator squad, all armed as shown in the video here. We have a Primaris Apothecary, a normal Apothecary. We have an Aggressor squad here with the Autostorm bolt gauntlets. We also have, obviously, got the Honour Guard here, a Chapter Champion, a Chapter Ancient. We have 2 Contemptors, one with a Multi-Melter and one with a Assault Cannon. We also have a Redemptor back here with the Plasma and Gatler on the other arm, and also it does have the Icarus missile pods on the top. And then finally, heavy choice wise, we have a Land Raider Helios as armed as standard, and then a flyer over here which is the Cestus Assault Ram. So that is my 3,750 points of Red Scorpions. We'll now see what the Nightlords are bringing.
So Ian from Imperium Gaming here, and these are my Nightlords. So I have 2 battalions and a couple of super heavies because I'm filthy. So leading my army, I have a Demon Prince, winged. I have a Sorcerer. I have a Chaos Lord on a jump pack that looks suspiciously like Conrad Kerr's. And I have a Chaos Lord, and the Chaos Lord is my Warlord. I have 6 troop squads. They are all cut and paste more or less. So 1 plasma gun in each one, and then the leaders of each squad are WYSIWYG. So we've got, I think, 2 power swords and lightning claws over here, and a combi plasma. I then have 1 squad of Noise Marines. I have a squad of bare bones 10 Raptors, just because I should. I also have a squad of double claw Terminators. I absolutely love these models, so I felt I needed to bring them in. And then to provide a little bit of support, I have 2 Contemptors with double Keres and Havoc launchers, Deradeo with Hellfire Veil, not the Greater Havoc launcher on top, so that will hopefully be producing a bubble of 5-up invul. And then I have the Leviathan. I also have a Predator, Hellforged of course, and a Sicaran. And then so we have the Spartan tank and the Chiton Ravager. So that's my army. I'm going to try and smash some Imperium base.
So as the deployment is just finished here, we are playing frontline warfare, which basically consists of 4 objectives on the battlefield, which are located 1 in each deployment zone. So we have 1 in my one here and 1 over there in Ian's. Then we have 2 sort of in the non-deployment area, so we've got 1 down here and 1 on here. The ones in the middle are worth 2 points. Your own one is worth 1 victory point in your deployment zone. However, the enemy's one in the deployment zone to you is worth 4 points. So obviously that's the key to trying to get the victory there, to get the enemy's one, which would be quite interesting to try and get over that side of the board, I think. But that's basically the mission. We also have Slay the Warlord, Line Breaker, and First Blood. So at the moment we have rolled off camera and Ian is going first. However, I'm going to see if I can seize for the Scorpions. Let's see if we get a bit of luck here. Unfortunately, not quite. So we'll be back in a moment with Nightlords, turn 1. So as the Nightlords kick off a turn 1 movement, as you can see down here, there's been quite a big shift of movement across the board. So we have the Khitan Princes and this squad moving forward, along with the Dreadnought and another squad snuck in down here. And then as we move over to the other side of the board here, to the central locations, we've got a bit of a Dreadnought push in the middle, and also a Spartan a sneak attack on the other flank. We'll see how the las cannons work out with that. So that's the movement done. We'll now move on into psychic shooting and see what happens. So as the shooting and psychic phases die down from the Nightlords in turn 1, it was a pretty painful turn for me. The ram got shot out the sky by the Spartan over here with some pretty good wounding in the end, and it got finished off. I think it was the heavy bolt was it finished off, along with the las cans there as well. So that, and obviously if you come along the line here, the castle with Cullen has decided to disintegrate. So 2 contemptors down. We'll see how that pans out in a minute. And I also lost 3 cataphracti terminators in the resulting explosion that came here. A squad of scouts up here completely destroyed, and also we got a couple off here, and there's a few scouts left down here. However, I believe they're in a bit of trouble, but we'll see what happens. So let's move on into the combat phase and see how things progress. So in the end of the combat phase there, the Khitan and the Demon Prince have edged ever closer after destroying a small squad of scouts in that building there. So that leaves them pretty close for the next round. We'll now move on into Scorpions turn 1 and see how they do. So the Scorpions start out their movement phase over here. Cullen has come forward to try and accept the challenge of the Khitan. It's a slight size difference. I'll just come down here, so we'll see if he can do that. Also, over here, Severin has got out and headed towards the Demon Prince with his Honour Guard. And there's been a general move in the middle here towards various threats that are in front of them. They're going to be hard pressed to try and take something out, but they're going to give it a damn good go. The Dreadnought here stood still, and the Cataphracti terminators have moved up slightly, and also the Apothecary managed to bring back one with a re-roll as well, just to make sure he brought one of the Terminators back, just to give them slightly more bodies there. So let's move on into Psychic and Shooting, and let's see what happens. So as the shooting phase dies down, with a bit of Psychic to back it up, down here, Psychic phase-wise, we had Mitre Heroes go off on Cullen, and also Null Zone off on this Librarian, and Veil of Time is currently on Severin Loth, so he'll be getting a reroll on his charge. Other than that, though, we shot pretty much everything at 2 particular units on the board, which was the Khitan here, taking it down to 14 wounds, and also this Leviathan here, taking it down to 2. However, this was the most luckiest Dreadnought, I think, in the game so far. I mean, mainly it was my rolling, to be fair. I think the 2 lads cannons to try and finish it off, rolling a 1 and a 2 to wound was just abysmal, really. But hey ho. So all we've got left now is to move on to quite a bit of combat. So let's see if we can come out on top in this section of the board at least, and then we'll move on into the following turn. So see you in a second. So as the combat phase dies down for the Scorpions, a reasonably successful turn over here. As you can see, there's no longer a Khitan, and there's also no longer a Demon Prince. However, it did cost us 2 Honour Guard in the end, because they had to absorb a lot of wounds for Severin down here, who is now on 2, but he would have been dead if it wasn't for the Honour Guard, so well done to them. Cullen actually finished off the Khitan on his own with using his Death Hold ability. We had a bit of a chat about it, and it didn't say the reason why he couldn't do it. We were thinking it would be more of a character-based thing, but it just says any model that you've rolled a 6 to hit with, you can activate it and do D6 mortal wounds. On the grounds that it had 2 mortal wounds left at the very end, 2 wounds left, I thought it's probably a good idea to do that, and then he died. So that was good. So that's one big thing off the board. In other places over here, the Cataphracti terminators made the charge. They didn't take any casualties to Overwatch, amazingly. However, they didn't do any. I think they did. Was it one wound? One wound in the end to it. So fair enough. So to wrap up my turn, the only thing that slightly galled me a bit was the 2 wounded Leviathan, which wouldn't die. But hey ho, we'll now move on into Nightlords turn 2, and let's see what Ian can do. So as turn 2 for the Nightlords enters the movement phase, or the end of here, as you can see, the Terminators down here have been completely surrounded by a lot of shooting weapons. I don't think they're going to do too well, but we shall see. The Spartan has moved back to get a line of sight across the board all the way over here to the various targets on this side. It's been the damaged Leviathan has moved forward, it's 3 inches to try and get a bit near, because obviously it can probably still charge if it wants to there. These two units have stayed still. Obviously over here the Predator has moved to make way for the Lord to get in range to help the reroll ones on the Spartan there. So unfortunately the other Lord had moved over here. And finally, just a little bit of movement from this squad here. So the claws are closing in on the Scorpions. Will the tail have any sting left by the end of this turn? We shall see. Let's move on into Psychic and Shooting. So at the end of the Nightlords shooting and Psychic phase, we had no Psychic powers go off in the end because of some pretty bad rolling on Ian's part. However, it didn't really detract from the fact that the Land Raider has now been blown up. That was from the Spartan over here with some... I think actually every single las cannon hit and every single las cannon did damage. I think doing a 26 wounds or something silly, so it happens. Yeah. And then over here, the Terminator squad has been whittled down to one man from obviously the copious amount of bolt and plasma shots that flew in there. The Redempt over here has been chipped down to 9 wounds. We also had a Scout up here get clipped off. Some Intercessors, I think half the squad was wiped out over here that was from the Grav bomber, and also I think the Butcher Cannon at the back there. And then finally the Aggressors unfortunately met their doom to the Contemptors and also the squads here and here. So that leaves me in a pretty interesting position, but we'll see what happens in the Assault phase now as we go into Nightlords Assault turn 2. So as the combat phase for Nightlords ends over here, obviously the poor Terminator that was left here was definitely killed. The Rhino actually didn't suffer any damage in the end. However, over here, the Lord saw his chance and leapt upon the Scorpion's captain over here and did 12 wounds to him. Quite impressive, really. So he's not. However, the Apothecary was a bit angry about that and did a wound back to him. I don't know if he's going to stay there. He might move on in a minute. But that's all the combat. So we'll now move on into Scorpion's turn 2, and we'll see if they can inflict some wounds back in the general direction of the Nightlords. So as turn 2 for the Scorpions kicks off in the movement phase, down here we've had Cullen come forward to bravely go towards the Storm of Fire in this direction. He's also brought with him his Intercessors and pretty much every character they could find on this side of the board to start making a advance across it that way. This squad here, obviously, well, these characters are just aiming a charge up against this squad down here. Obviously, there's still a Contemptor hiding there, which is going to be a bit of a pain. We've also got a tactical squad got out here before the Rhino moved up to try and deal with the ruin-based Nightlords over here. The Redemptor shuffled over this way to get close to the Lord, but also keep himself within shooting distance of everything up here. Also got the Scout here, who's probably going to be using a command point shortly to try and finish the Dread off, but we'll see if that pans out in a minute. And finally over here, this Rhino has shot out and advanced around this way just to try and get away from all these troops here, which is not a bad positioning for him because I don't think much can get past there now, which is good. However, we'll now move on into Psychic and Shooting and see what the Scorpions can do. So at the end of the Scorpion's shooting phase, as you can see here, the Leviathan finally met his end. That was actually from some Hellfire shells from up here from the remaining Scout. Also during the Psychic phase, we had Might Heroes go off and Veil of Time onto here, and also some pretty good smiting going on. Although fewer of the Ancients did the most damage by getting over to this tightly packed squad and actually managed to kill 4. However, the remaining room apparently was immune to any kind of other bolt of fire. Getting his one up in the ruins, so he's still there. Never know, might fair lead a ship. Over here, the Redemptor shot some rounds into the Spartan, taking it down to 17 wounds. Unfortunately, the rest of its fire was pretty ineffective. And then basically in the middle here, Cullen, the Intercessors, and the Lieutenant shot at the Contemptor, taking it down to 6 wounds. So that's pretty good. We'll now move on into the Assault phase and see if we can make a few more things happen. So at the end of the combat phase in turn 2 for the Red Scorpions down here, Cullen made his charge and he managed to take the Sorcerer out. However, he's left the Contemptor on 2 wounds after what I think it was a failed hit in the end. On this side of the board, the character line here charged into the 3 remaining Chaos Marines, I should say, and took them out. And also the Chapter Champion here charged into the remaining one in the ruin and finished him off. And then finally over here, the Redemptor came in and squished the Chaos Lord. However, he's got a lot of plasma fire to contend with in a minute, I have a suspicion. So we'll see what happens there. However, we'll now move on to turn 3 for the Nightlords and see how it pans out. As the Nightlords commence turn 3, movement has been completed. And over here, you can see the Contemptor has moved out of combat with Cullen. Probably sensible for his health, however, probably not very good for Cullen's health. With the amount of firepower pointing in his direction. On the back lines, however, there's been some drops here. Some Raptors have come in at the back here, ready to introduce themselves into the party. And then over in this corner, we've also had some Cataphracto Terminators, or just Terminators in this case, that drop in, ready to take on this squad over here. Other than that, there's not been much movement, because I think everything is in range for shooting wherever it needs to be. So we'll now move on to Psychic. Actually, no Psychic anymore, pardon me. Move on to shooting for the Nightlords. I'm back in a minute. So as the Nightlord's shooting phase dies down, Cullen is now on 9 wounds. He did some pretty good saving, to be fair. So he got lots of vulnerables. There was quite a few misses because we had Partridge Spartan, the Predator, the Sicarian, and I think the Derridio went in as well. So that was pretty good saving considering he started on full wounds. He was on 15, so he's done pretty well there. Unfortunately, the Chapter Champion, I don't think there's probably much left of him. He took 9 assault cannon shots to the face. So yeah, he's not coming back anytime soon. The Incestors lost a couple here as well, unfortunately. And over to this side of the board, the Redemptor remains unscathed. However, around this corner, the squad and the Rhino are destroyed bar 4, which are hidden around that corner there. However, they obviously will be probably receiving a royal charge in a second. So let's move on into Nightlord's turn 3 assault phase and see what happens. So at the end of Nightlord's turn 3 combat phase over here, unfortunately the remaining tactical squad got absolutely overwhelmed, and even the Spartan did try to eat one of them to regain a wound but didn't quite succeed. Over towards this side of the board, the Terminators managed to get in and kill only 2 in the end. So not too bad, but we fought back, did 7 wounds but didn't manage to do anything but 1 wound. And then finally over here, right in the luck wave I was... the Raptors did not make their charge into the Librarian and the Ancient over here, which was very lucky on my part. So that is the end of Nightlord's turn 3. We'll now move on into the Scorpion's turn 3 and see if Cullen can continue his charge forward into copious amounts of firepower, which will be interesting to see how far he gets up the field. So back in a minute with turn 3 Scorpions. So as the Scorpions desperately move forward in turn 3 here, we have the character base over here charging towards this Dreadnought up here to try and finish it off, with the Ancient just bringing up the rear because he's a little bit behind. The Rhino has reversed into the ruins here to get hold of that objective. Also over here, the Apothecary managed to get back all of Severin's wounds in the end, so that's made him back to full strength on 6. Cullen has moved forward here to have a pop at one of these, or all 3 of them, probably 2 of them I think. Might be sensible with the amount of Overwatch. The Redemptor obviously still locked in combat over here, and the Intercessor's going to try and ride the luck wave and go for there, because unfortunately, as I spent my last command point to re-roll a run, or an advance for the Librarian to be in range to put Psychic Powers on Cullen, it means I can't use my trusty Hellfire rounds from the Scout here to finish off the Dreadnought down there.
It's normal.
It's the head bottom might be enough. We will see, obviously. So that's movement. We'll now move into Psychic and shooting for the Scorpions. Okay, so we had a quite interesting shooting in Psychic phase. First of all, we got Might of Heroes off. We then also did a smite with the Librarian here, who rolled double 6, perilled obviously, did 3 wounds to himself. Obviously that was on the Dreadnought that was here, so I thought, d6 damage should be alright. He only had 2 wounds, he rolled a 1. However, the librarian did have the last laugh because he killed him with his pistol. After everything else had fired. And then over here, Severin got Veil of Time on himself, which is good. However, he also rolled an 11 on Smite and managed to do 5 wounds to the Contemptor. So he's actually down to 2 now with all the other pistol fire that fired in there. So pretty good. However, that's pretty much it shooting wise. So we're going to head on into the combat phase and we'll see if Cullen can survive another round of Overwatch. And see if we can maybe take a tank or 2 out. We're back in a minute. Okay, so front and centre here at the end of the combat phase 4, the Red Scorpions over here. Cullen managed to get in and he managed to take 6 wounds off the Sicaran. However, 2 really good saves saved him from another 2 wounds on there, which is really, really good for the Nightlords. They also managed to do a wound back to Cullen, which has dropped him a bracket, I believe. Over here, similar story actually. This Redemptor didn't do much in combat. I think it killed off 2 in the end, but managed to take a wound back in return. Moving to this side of the board, we had some absolute weirdness happen over here. We obviously got into the Contemptor here, the Hellforge Contemptor. We killed it. It then blew up, and as Severin was a psyker, he took D6 wounds, and he had 5 left, and he took 5. The Chapter Master had 3 wounds left, and he took 3 from the D3. And then obviously everyone else there is left on 3 wounds because they all took 1 each, which is quite nice. Very painful for the Scorpions, though, sadly. And then over here, we had a combat which obviously did not go in the Scorpions' favour. In fact, I have to do a morale test as well, and they're okay. Yeah. So they survived that one and still in combat with them there. And in fact, that now wraps up the combat phase. We're now going to move into Nightlords turn 4, which I didn't think we would get to, but it's turned out to be quite an interesting game so far. So we'll now see what happens in turn 4 for the Nightlords. So as the Nightlords commence turn 4, over here they have come out of combat with the Dreadnought, but that was mainly to facilitate some additional shooting and also a possible other charge in a minute in this direction over here. So we'll see if the Dreadnought can weather the storm. In the middle over here, we had the Raptors jump up to get behind the Librarian and this squad here. There's also, just in case it wasn't raised, there's a cheeky scout still sitting up here. He's just, I think, just trying to stay very quiet at the moment. There's been a kind of like a scatter technique employed by Chaos over here from Cullen, sort of backing off, ready to obviously take a few rounds from the Dreadnought and possibly the Spartan, I'd imagine. So other than that, though, nothing else was able to move really. So that's it, and we'll now move on into the shooting phase for the Nightlords. Okay, so as the shooting phase ends in turn 4 for the Nightlords, we have a dead scout. From the heavy bolters there. I think it was more of a spiteful shot. It was very spiteful. Very spiteful shot because I think they wasn't happy about the hellfire or something. I think that was right. Cullen took a wound. However, he weathered 8 las cannons for that wound, and also I think it was off the butcher cannons on there, and he managed to save one of the with the feel no pain. Over this side, the Redemptor here took a wound after taking an absolute volley of fire from this direction, but did pretty well. However, unfortunately, the poor Librarian. I say poor Librarian, I think Ian's quite happy he's gone because he can't put Mighty Heroes on Cullen anymore. Has got bolt pistol to death by this small Raptor squad down here. So that really wraps up the shooting turn. We're now going to head on to Assault because I think there's a couple you're going to do in a minute. Yeah. So probably over this area, and let's see what happens. So as the Raptors descended into this squad here, they managed to take out 2 of the Sergeant's team, leaving him on his own. However, the Sergeant bit back by killing 2 of the Raptors in turn. He did pass his leadership, luckily, so he's still all right. Over here, the Claws had basically minced the squad in a very... I think they got 11 wounds or something silly, so they didn't really survive that too well. And they've headed towards the Land Raider. So I did that earlier on. The Rhino, I did give Ian a small heart attack because he thought I had a Land Raider somewhere that he hadn't seen. And then over here, they're not in combat obviously, so that is everything at the moment. So we'll now move on to the Scorpions turn 4 and see if we can make another couple of things happen. Okay, so as the Scorpions commence their turn 4, they have blitzed through this ruin, the remaining chapter characters to say, heading towards the Terminators over here, because obviously this is an objective up here. Although only worth 1 point, it would mean that it keeps this side of the board to them. We started saying combat there, because I can't really get out of combat, to be fair. So I think he's just going to try and do some more swinging. The Redemptor stays still, because it wants to try and light up this squad here, and the Apothecary has just moved behind here to secure and get out of line of sight. And over in the middle here, Cullen has just taken a quick step through between the troublesome things around him, and is hopefully going to get towards that Lord at the back there in a charge in a minute, and also, you know, possibly light up the Predator. We'll see. But we've got some shooting to do now. Let's see what happens. Okay, so shooting phase for the Scorpions in turn 4. Over here, the Redemptor opened up to various units. He took 3 off this squad here, and I think he took 2 off there, but with the Apothecary helping out to take the 3rd one out. Cullen lit up the Predator with all his weapons and took it down to 3 wounds, which is not too bad. And over this side of the board, we had all the pistols and the Stalker Bolter firing, and also the Storm Bolter fire into the Terminators over here, and they took 1 out in the end, although that was just the Lieutenant's contribution in the end. The bolt pistols did nothing. So that is the that's the end of the shooting phase. We'll now move on to combat, and let's see what happens. So as turn 4 came to an end for the Scorpions, over here the Redemptor made it in and didn't do anything. However, the Apothecary, in a rage, managed to kill the remaining 2 members of the Chaos Marine squad up here, so he's managed to secure this area, apart from this Noise Marine down here, who is still locked in combat with the Dreadnought. How long that goes on, we don't know. I was going to say, I think he may be exiting quite swiftly. Cullen made it in. He managed to finish the Predator off, but however, unfortunately, to some exceptional saves from the Warlord there, managed to not do any wounds to him. And on this side of the battlefield, I think it was 1 apiece. Yeah, one model and 1 wound apiece, yeah. So nothing really spectacular over here. I think it's going to be like that for a couple of turns if it carries on. And however, in the middle here, the remaining Intercessor has been wiped out by a number of chainswords. So that's turn 4. We're now going to move to turn 5 for Nightlords, and let's see how the game progresses. So turn 5, Nightlords, and the movement phase is in full swing here. So we've had all of these Marines heading towards this ruin, which is, I think, covered in a lot of the dead ones now. So whether they want I'm not sure they want to join them or just want to try and secure the objective. You never know with Nightlords, they're quite vicious. Over here, the Spartan has made a tactical manoeuvre to secure the objective with I think the Lord hiding behind there as well, yeah. And then obviously the Raptors here are trying to circle the carcass of Cullen in a minute. They've got quite a lot of firepower, obviously, that can be utilised here, so it will be interesting to see how much of it he can take. Over this side of the board, nothing really happened. I think we're just going to see this combat out by the looks of it now. So that's all the movement. Oh, sorry, yeah, and the Sicarian here has moved to secure the central objective there, probably quite sensible, as this is turn 5. So that'll be the end of the movement. We'll now head on into shooting and see what happens. So over here, sadly, the beast has finally fallen. Admittedly, it took everything shooting it, every single shot to get him down. He didn't explode, he couldn't recover his wounds, so Cullen has fallen. I'm pretty impressed with where he ended up though. However, over here, on a complete flip side, the other Redemptor Dreadnought also blew up and took pretty much everything away in this area here. So I think there was a couple of squads here. There was the Apothecary, the Noise Marine, all dead, because it was D6 mortal wounds per unit, which is pretty horrendous. So that's all the shooting. We're just going to come over to this side of the board for a bit of combat now, and we're back in a second. So at the end of the combat phase there, we had fortunately lost the standard bearer. He did manage to do 1 fight back as he died, taking a wound off one of the Terminators there. So we're just going to head on and quickly wrap up Scorpion's turn 5, which I'm just going to do all in one recap just to keep it quite and easy. It's all over this side of the board anyway. And then we're back in a second. Okay, so at the end of turn 5 for the Scorpions over here, they managed to take out one more Terminator, and also I think it didn't take a wound in the end, actually, the Lieutenant, so it ended even there. No other things to do there. That is the end of the game. So just as a tot-up of actually what actually happened in the end, we were holding 1 point over here, so that gave us 2 points. Unfortunately, with this point over here, that was worth 1, and this was worth 2, so that's 3, and then obviously Ian also picked up First Blood and Flay the Warlord, so another 2 points on top of that, so they get 5 to 2, which is, yeah, not too bad considering. And we're back in just 1 second. So obviously at the end of that game, really good fun. It was 5 to 2 in the end. A bit closer than I thought it would be. Don't know about you. I think after the second turn, I think it swung, didn't it? It did. Yeah, because I think with the loss of the Khitan and the Demon Prince in that first turn probably just gave me an edge.
I was a bit worried.
Yeah, and I think Cullen more than made up for his points during that game with a swath of death that he.
Man of the match for both sides.
You reckon? Yeah. So, I mean, he was going to be mine, definitely. I mean, if you want to pick him, that's great. I don't know if you had any favourite moments of the game or anything like that.
Well, for me, it was the Contemptor.
Just down here,
when it blew up.
Yeah.
And I'd almost killed Severin earlier, and then you healed him right back up to full. Then I managed to get 1 wound on him, so he's still on 5, and then it blows up. Takes him out.
Yeah.
And the Chapter Master as well. That was like
that was sweet. I must confess that for the reverse of me, I would say that my favourite was the bit at the back here when everything looked quite lost over here, and then suddenly it was D6 mortal wounds to everything around.
Everything is lost.
Everything is lost. Yeah. So that's pretty much the game there. Really good afternoon, actually morning of gaming actually. So. Obviously, I've been down at Imperium Games there and Ian's, and obviously if you haven't checked them out, please do. They're a great site. I'll put some links in the description for them, so please check them out and give them a sub if you like what you see. And as for now, this is Tom and Ian from Imperium Gaming, and we'll see you soon. Right.